Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I hope you're having a great end of your week. This has been a very long week for us and our family. For those of you who may know, we ended up having to get a new family vehicle because our middle son decided that our other car was far too aerodynamic and had the bumper ripped off of it by pulling out in front of somebody. So anyway, it actually worked out because we ended up getting a bigger vehicle. We have a 20-year-old, we have a 17-year-old, and we have a 3-year-old little girl. And man, she takes up a lot of space. Like, she's not a very big human yet, but man, just a lot of it. So if you guys can relate, you know what it's like trying to operate in a very small car. But it was a good car. Anyway, we had sent her off to the happy hunting ground, but we ended up getting a bigger vehicle. So anyway, if you've ever been through that, it's just been a lot. So that's what we've been working through this week. So anyway, you don't care about that. What you care about is you're here to learn to borrow in the name of a business, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. So as you guys pile in, please let me know where you're from and what line of work that you're in, or maybe what business idea that maybe you have. Because if you are looking to borrow in the name of a business, I'm just going to let you know right now, there's no way possible that I could teach you how to borrow the name of a business in an hour or 90 minutes or however long we're going to be on here today. Probably I've got it scheduled for 90 minutes. I don't think we're going to take that long, but there's a lot. So I'm just letting you know in advance, I'm going to teach you some very foundational things, but there's no possible way I could teach you everything that I know as an underwriter. So just letting you know, I was an underwriter for a number of years with a bank. And if you don't know what an underwriter is, it's okay, because I didn't either until I actually became one. But it's basically somebody who takes a look at the numbers on the back side of a loan or insurance product or anything like that and says, is this acceptably risky? And that's really what an underwriter does. So as a loan, I worked in the commercial lending department as basically a credit analyst, as a loan officer sort of thing. I supported the loan officers, and I looked at these. Basically, I was making credit decisions for businesses that would come in. Sometimes they would ask for $500,000. Sometimes they would ask for $5 million. Sometimes they would ask for $25 million. And we, as the credit analysts, we were making these loan decisions. Or we were helping to make the loan decisions. We weren't making the decision by ourselves, but I was part of the team that was doing that. So I want you to understand, there's so much to know in that. There's no way I can do it in an hour. So I'm just letting you know up front, as you guys are coming in saying hello, I do want to hear from you. Jesse, hello. Greetings. Nice to see you. Let me know where you're from, and what line of work that you're in. Natisha. I'm betting that you get a lot of people calling you Natasha. Natisha, it's nice to have you here. You're in Virginia and a home decor store. Excellent. Ashley B. Ashley, I feel like we've met before, haven't we, Ashley? This is Ashley from Charlotte, North Carolina. I own a fire protection and fire safety company specializing in NFPA 96. Excellent. Very good. Very well niched. I like that. So for those of you who are just joining, there's a lot of people piling in. Looks like I got quite a few people from YouTube. This is, we got Iman from Chicago, a compliance officer. Excellent. You're a compliance officer are you in the lending world? So I'm just wondering what you do for compliance. Because I worked in the field of accounting for a while as well, and I didn't do compliance work. That was cruel and unusual. I give a lot of people credit who can do compliance work. That's a lot of work. Jesse is in New York and currently transitioning careers. Excellent. I grew up in New York, Jesse. I grew up in the Catskills. So then I joined the Marine Corps, and when I came back home, I came to the Midwest, and I loved it out here. Sam is from Ontario, Canada, and looking to start a window cleaning business. Excellent, Sam. Lots of dirty windows out there. Mohammed, entrepreneur living in Ontario, Canada. Good to have you here, Mohammed. And Iman is saying yes. You're saying yes to being a compliance officer in a bank. Okay, excellent. Well, very good. So, what I'm going to be talking about today, and again, this is the sort of stuff that borrowing in the name of a business is tricky, and it's tricky just because a lot of times people are coming in as business owners and they're still thinking like consumers. And that's what I'm going to try to make that disconnect today. So I'm going to talk a little bit about just a couple of different terms, but I want to let you guys know up front that it is you're saying I'm from New York City. Oh, very good. And very good. Oh, awesome. You guys are having quite a winner there, as we are as well. So hopefully things are sorted out with your trash situation and everything there. That's a shame, but hopefully things are working out. So anyway, the biggest disconnect that I see with people as I work as a strategist, and I tend to work as a strategist for smaller business owners, people who generally are either solopreneurs or they have sometimes usually less than 20 employees. And the problem is they've been using consumer type debt to help build their business up to a certain point. And they're like, man, I really would like to be able to borrow in the name of my business. And the problem is they don't understand how that disconnect works, right? They're still thinking of debt to income in a debt service coverage world. Okay, you're going to understand what I mean here in a second. But basically, debt to income and debt service coverage, debt to income is more of a consumer type product or consumer type lending versus debt service coverage ratio, and they're not calculated the same way. So I just want to let you know, I'm going to show you very rudimentary how to calculate debt service coverage, but I don't have the time to get into the weeds of it. I'm letting you all know this now because at the end I do have an offer to make for you. It's for a course. If you don't want the course, I'm going to let you know in advance. Nope, I'm out. I'll let you know when you want to hop off. So that way, if you're not interested, you don't have to sit through it. I'm just letting you know this now because I hate being in those courses where people are like, okay, does he have something he's trying to sell us? Yes, this time I actually do. I don't, in most of these, I don't have anything to sell. But this one I do only because I had several other people who they went through the course like, man, that was good, but like, is there something more? And I'm like, well, yeah, I have a course. Like, well, why didn't you tell us? Right? So I'm not trying to be weird about it. I just hate feeling like I'm that guy pushing something on you that you don't need. This is a really good course. I'm just letting you know in advance, like it is a really good course and I offer a 395-day guarantee. You're like, wait, what? That's over a year. Yeah, 365 days plus 30. I give you 30 days to learn the entire course and then 365 days to implement it. And if you decide at any point during that 395 days that I'm full of crap or don't know what I'm talking about, you can get your money back. And it's not even that much money. So I'm just letting you know, I really stand behind this course, but I am going to get to this right now. So let's get to it. You are here to learn to borrow in the name of a business. Why would you even think about lending? You're like, hey, look, I follow Dave Ramsey and he's about anti-debt and everything else. I promise you, he has probably learned to use debt as the tool that it should be used for. You're using debt as a tool, not as a crutch, and you're using debt in the right way, not to fund your lifestyle, but to help and grow your business. And it's really, when you're using it in the right way, you can actually increase your returns because you're using someone else's money, you're using borrowed money. But the problem is most people don't. They're trying to fund their businesses using consumer debt, and consumer debt is not only really expensive, I mean, it's easy to get, but it's also really expensive on something called a loan constant. I'm not going to get into the whole full concept of loan constant in this session just because it's not hard to calculate. It's just it takes me about 10 minutes to explain. But the thing is that based on the amount of money that you borrow per thousand, it's so much more expensive on your cash flow. And that's the problem, is that businesses I see are leaning on consumer debt to fund their growth when they really need to be looking at other types of debt. Okay, so it's not that all debt is bad. Trust and know, when I was going into 2009, I had built, it was about a $6.5 million portfolio in real estate, and I did it on mostly borrowed money. I had $6 million of borrowed money. Now, out of that $6 million of borrowed money, about 200,000 was unsecured loans. And that's what really got me into trouble, was the unsecured debt, not the secured debt. right? Not the debt that was tied to the real estate, but the unsecured debt of the 200,000 was what really was hard to service because it was so expensive. Okay. So I just want you to understand that this is what you're looking at when you're borrowing money. It's important that you understand something, especially when you're dealing with a banker. Bankers are in the business of managing risk. Yes, they have to loan money. They have to loan money because if they don't loan the money, I'm getting so fired up, I'm knocking things over here. But if you don't understand that their job is to manage risk first and foremost, yes, they have to loan money in order to do that. But if they're going to say, okay, if I'm going to give you this 10,000, what's the likelihood of me getting it back? And if they're going to be judging based on, well, if it's 90% or 80% or 70%, I mean, that's what makes things more expensive. So when you're funding your growth using consumer debt or 90 days same as cash or 6 months same as cash or other types of loans that are like that, or hey, I love getting my credit card points, I love getting my travel miles, don't trust and know I utilize that stuff too, but I'm telling you it comes at a cost. Okay, so I'm just letting you know, when you understand that bankers are in the business of managing risk, then you can approach a banker in a way to say, hey, I have a deal to bring to you and I wanted to see if you want a piece of it. Do you see what I did there? I'm selling the banker on this loan. I'm not there with my hat in hand like, please, sir, can I have some money? You're not doing it that way. You're doing it in a way where you're bringing them in to the deal. And I will also tell you this, just because one bank says no, okay, great. Do you know how you have any idea how many banks are out there ready to loan money? And not even just banks, but hedge funds and insurance companies and all sorts of different entities, even individuals, private money. There's people who loan money out of their retirement accounts so they can get better returns than what they will get on the stock market. And that is a whole cottage industry of people doing those sorts of loans. So I'm just telling you, just because one person, one bank, one entity said no, that is fine. Get that no out of the way and go find other ways to find someone else that'll say yes. I'm just telling you, there's a lot of money out there being lent. So anyway, again, if you are joining, please let me know who you are, and especially if you're on YouTube, because I only get your handle. Let me know who you are and where you're from and what kind of business that you're in, and what you're thinking, you're hoping to understand a little bit about business lending, because it is not straightforward. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a top-down approach before I get to the lending components here real quick. So I'm going to go through this really, really fast. If those of you who have ever been part of my business growth accelerator, or I'm sorry, strategic business growth multiplier class, or any of my business 101 classes, or financial business plans 101, anything like that, we are going to be doing this really super fast. So it's very truncated version of those. So I'm not going to be spending a lot of time in the nuances or in the weeds, because I really want to get to the lending part, which is important. But since I'm a strategist, I want to look at things top down, because just teaching you something without context is not going to be helpful for you. So I really want you to understand what it is that we're looking at right here. Now, for those of you who are also, I know some of you have sent a message earlier, are you getting the replay? Yes, you'll be sent the replay if you signed up through EventBrite. So if you did not, you can look for it on YouTube when we get that uploaded. So it's good. Again, if you are joining, see some more people joining, it's good to see you. Please let me know where you're from and what line of work that you're in. So let's get to the agenda. First and foremost, we're going to get to the Viper framework, which is going to be around the systems part of your business. And then we're going to talk about the 4 core functions of business. And these are 4 core functions that every business needs to have. And you might be thinking, well, why are we talking about 4 core functions of business? Why are we talking about business and not the lending part? Because all the aspects of the accounting and finance piece of the 4 core functions have to exist to serve all of the other portions, right? So that'll make sense here in just a little bit. But again, if you don't have your money right, everything else is just jacked up. So this is why I want to bring in all of these from the systems component and of course the 4 core functions. Then we're going to be talking about the financial statements and the basics, very, very basics of financial statements. And that's going to be important. So when you're sitting down in front of a lender, you're going to know what you're talking about in advance. Now, again, this is stuff I can't get into super weeds on just because we're going to be flying here, but I just want to let you know this is all stuff that I do cover in the course. And again, I'll talk about that here at the end. So the other thing is the underwriting and lending, what your banker is going to be looking for and why, and then also some different success strategies that we're going to be talking about. All right, so let's talk about the Viper framework. This is everything that I talked about that's on the screen. It's a book over my shoulder here. I wrote and published this book I published it actually in 2025. I wrote it mostly in 2024, but I finished it up and got it published in 2025. This is the Time Wealthy Advantage. I'm not here to promote the book. If you want a copy, if you live in the U.S. and you'd like a copy, you can go to strategicboardroom.com and buy a copy. I can sign it and send it to you. If you're outside the U.S., I know there's some of you who are outside the U.S. This is you're better off going to Amazon and buying it that way, just because the fulfillment's much better from that perspective. So when we're looking at a business approach, we're looking at both a systems approach and a psychology. It's the S&P approach to business. And the systems approach is what we're going to be looking at right now. So we're going to be looking at systems first and foremost. And that is everything that we're going to be talking about through the Viper framework. The Viper framework is an acronym, and this is about how you're going to structure your business. And everything is going to be structured around this framework. So we're going to be doing this really fast so you understand just the kind of basic top-down approach to setting up your business. And this is going to be very, very critical. And it's also going to be very critical for you, the loan officer that you're sitting in front of, to know how you set up your business. Because if you have set up your business in a way that doesn't sound very sound, right? It doesn't make sound business, they're probably not going to loan you the money. So this is why, from a top-down perspective, I want to make sure that I have all this stuff laid out in advance. So when I'm sitting in front of a loan officer, in advance of sitting in front of that loan officer, I'm like, okay, I've got all this stuff already thought through. Does it make sense? So the Viper framework is an acronym for vision, infrastructure, process, execution, and reporting. And again, if you're joining me today, looks like you've got a few more people that joined. Please let me know where you're from and what line of your work that you're in so I can make this relevant to you. All right, so let's talk about vision first and foremost. Vision it's broken down into two main areas. It's about personal vision and business vision. Now, the personal vision is pretty much, okay, well, where do you want to go? Where do you want to go in life, right? So, Iman, where do you want to go in life? Jesse, where do you want to go in life, right? Alaj, hold on one second. Elijah Moke. I got that right. From Indy. You're from Indy? I'm in Lafayette. I'm an hour north of you. All right, glad that you could join me. Let's see. We've got Brianna is from Detroit, Michigan, and an entrepreneur. Excellent, very good. Glad that you could join us today. So, the personal vision, again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because this is a business focus, but I just want to spend a hot second on this. I don't want you to build this business out and never really give any consideration in terms of what it's for, in terms of what you want your life to look like, if it didn't have anything to do with your business, if it didn't have anything to do with income generation. I want you to think about, where is it you want to go? Like Brianna, where do you want your life to look like? Jesse, what do you want your life to look like? Elijah Moke, where do you want to look at? You're saying yes. Yeah, I'm just a little bit north of you. I want to transition into being an entrepreneur. Sorry, we are battling a cold in our house, and I have got the brunt of it today. I want to transition into being an entrepreneur. Excellent, Jesse. Very good. Well, and this is a really important skill set to learn in terms of, especially learning to borrow in the name of a business. So where you want to go, this doesn't have anything to do with, where your job description doesn't become your life description. So this is important to think about and give some consideration to a personal vision. Then you think about your business vision, and your business vision is, all right, cool, that's where you want to go. We're going to take the business vision and say, cool, that's how we're going to get there. That's what the business vision does. And I'm just telling you that it's important to start thinking of this stuff now, because when you start thinking of it now and not later, because that's where you're really going to, like I sat in classes and masterminds and seminars and just sat next to people who are literally crushing it in business, but their life was a disaster. They were making 6 and 7, sometimes 8 figures, and sometimes, 6 and 7 figures a month. And their life was a train wreck. And you know what they were focused on? Making more money rather than fixing that personal vision that they should have had a focus on at some point. So I'm just telling you, the danger in creating a business vision without ever giving any thought to a personal vision is that you end up creating a life that exists to serve the business. And I'm just telling you, that's an empty well that never gets filled in. So just one hot second, I'm just going to talk about this, and then we're going to be talking about business for the rest of the time here. But when you're looking at personal vision, one of the things I like to do is consider a 100th birthday speech. Let's pretend you're turning 100 years old. And, I want you to think about who would you want to be there, or what would you say to the people that are in the room? What would be the message that you would want others, what would you want others to say to you when you were done speaking? Like, oh my gosh, that was great, grandma and grandpa, whatever. Like, that was a great speech. But what would be the message that you would want people to carry outside the room to others when you were done speaking? So just think about that. And if you're thinking, well, 100 years is just, like being 100 is so far away for you. Like, dude, I'm in my 20s. Okay. How about the next major milestone in your life? How about when you're at your next, at your high school reunion, or your 30th birthday, your 40th birthday, or when your kids graduate from school, or something, or something along those lines. Think about that in terms of the next major milestone. All right, so we'll put the fries in the bag on personal vision, but I want you to start thinking about that. Start thinking about that stuff now, even just some things that you look forward to. So when you're looking at business vision is brought up by 3 C's. That's core purpose, core values, and client avatar. Core purpose, core values, and client avatar. Elijah Moke is saying, I'm into the closing business. Yes, very good. So I'm glad you're in the closing. You are in the clothing business. Sorry, I'm trying to multitask here. So the business vision is what grounds you to reality. I would say the personal vision is what grounds you to reality, Mohammed. It's a great observation. Not the business vision. It's the personal vision that grounds you to reality, because I'm not saying that you're going to have these crazy visions that you're never going to obtain. No, make them a little scary. But the business vision is what you're going to reverse engineer to deliver the personal vision for you. Okay? Because I think a lot of times the people are not grounded in reality because of their business vision. They think they're going to be making $1 zillion a year, and they don't need to be making that kind of money. Realistically, I'm living probably 85 to 90% of my vision right now. But is it ever going to be at 100? I hope not, because that means I'm probably aiming too low. But I'm living very distinct parts of my vision right now because I have defined it. I spend so much time with my bride and my daughter and my one son who's 17, my other son, he's moved out already. He's in his 20s. But my point is, like, I'm living very distinct portions of my life, of my vision right now, because I took time to define it. Like right now I'm in school. I'm trying to get my PhD in organizational psychology, in industrial organizational psychology. And that's part of a vision for me. Right? Now, is it about having a PhD? No, it's not about the PhD. It's about just it being a goal. Right? So again, that's the way I would look at that. But really good observation. Let's see here. Kelly saying, watching from Baltimore City, Maryland. Excellent. I want to transition to starting a case management business. Excellent. Very good. Very good, Kelly. Good to have you here. So the 3 C's of business vision, I want you to think about this, is that anytime that I have been invited into a business, okay, and I know this is high level, and the whole point of this is to learning to borrow as a business, but it's so critical to have these 3 things well defined in a business vision. And the reason being is anytime I get brought in as a strategist or as a fractional CSO, Chief Strategic Officer, and I'm working with the C-suite of individuals, and I'm trying to help them define their strategy, almost always I find holes in one or all of these areas. And that's core purpose, core values, and client avatar. So let me define what these specific things mean. Because as you're looking to borrow in the name of a business, if your business has holes in any of these 3 things, you're going to be struggling. You're going to be struggling to find clients. You're going to be struggling with bringing in and keeping good talent. You're going to be struggling with the company culture and the company brand, and all of that will make sense here in just a hot second. So let's talk about core purpose. Core purpose is specifically what business that you're in and specifically what problems do you solve. And it's important that you're really specific in your answers. If you're not specific in your answers and you're just like, well, I'm in real estate, that tells me very little. If you just say, well, I'm in IT or I'm working in AI, okay, again, it doesn't tell me a whole lot. But if you say, well, I'm a residential realtor that works on the south side of Miami in this specific school district, and I really like selling single family houses. That tells me a lot more. And that's why I'm saying it's really important that you know the business that you're in and the problems that you solve. Most entrepreneurs that I know, when I ask them, well, what line of work are you in? They'll tell me, well, I'm in this and this and this, and I've got an idea for 5 more businesses. Right? Is that anybody out there? Right? If you're not, you're lying, because I know you, right? It's hard when you're an entrepreneur. You have like so many different ideas. Every time you get out of the shower, you got a new idea. And I get it. I'm the same way. It's that being that serial entrepreneur. But I'll tell you, remember earlier when I said that bankers are in the business of managing risk? If they feel you're not committed to one core purpose within your business, that you're doing a little bit of this and a little bit of that and a little bit of this, again, that's more risky. They want to know that you're committed to one core purpose, and trust and know it's much easier to reach people when they feel that you're committed to one core purpose. Okay. Now, it doesn't mean you have one core offer. It doesn't mean that you only do one thing, right? It's like an automobile shop. Do they do tires and mufflers? Maybe. Do they do brakes? Probably. Do they do, could they replace light bulbs? Sure, right? That doesn't mean they only do one thing. They do lots of things around a vehicle, right? So again, this is why it's so important to understand that you understanding the core purpose. But do they sell essential oils also with your car repair? Probably not. Do they do laptop repair while you wait? Probably not. They're focused in that one core purpose of fixing passenger vehicles. So that's where you start to think about core purpose. Let's talk about core values. Core values is what matters to you about this business, and how would the world be worse off if you were no longer in business? So for those of you who just joined, welcome. I just want to say, if you are joining, it looks like we've got a bunch of people in from YouTube. Let me know where you're from and what line of work that you're in, because we're talking here about borrowing in the name of a business. And this is really important, especially the core values component, because the core values is what helps define the company culture. Core values is what defines the company culture. And the company culture and the company brand are inextricably linked. So if you've got this company brand, right? For example, and this is an important example here. When you've got the company culture is what's experienced by the people who work there. The company brand is what's experienced by the people who shop there. That's why those things are inextricably linked. So if you have a very good, well-defined set of core values, and you might be thinking, well, how do I define my core values? It's quite simple. I can guarantee you, everyone on here, so Kelly, or Mohammed, or Brianna, or Jesse, or I'm just going to call you Ola. So Ola, you guys and gals, you probably have had a friend, maybe a romantic interest in your life, that was heading down a path that you couldn't follow. Has anybody had that? Yeah, I've had that, and it sucked because you had to let that person go. But the reason you let them go is because it violated a core value of yours. Make sense? You were like, no, dude, you're heading down a path I can't follow. And because I'm not about that, that's a violation of a core value. That is how you know something isn't just a value, but it's a core value. It's something you're willing to take action on. Is that making sense? Right? Yeah, Kelly, I'm sorry. Yeah, it sucks, right? It is the worst. Jesse, Kelly, yeah, it is the worst, but that's also a real blessing, because now you know because that's a line in the sand for you, that's a core value for you. And some people say, well, they say honesty. I don't want people to lie to me. Well, I don't want people to lie to me either. But am I willing to go to war over it? Am I willing to go to battle over it? No, probably not, right? I value peanut M&Ms, but am I going to go to war over peanut M&Ms? No. If someone breaks in my house and wants my peanut M&Ms, I'm like, okay, take the peanut M&Ms. They break in my house and threaten my family. Now they're going to be met with some very harsh resistance, okay? And they're going to see Kung Fu Marine Corps come out, right? And that's the problem, is that because that violates a core value for me, because my family is so important to me, that's how I know it's a core value, when I'm willing to get up off the couch to act on it. So think about those violations of bad bosses and bad managers and bad customers and all of those people that you're like, nope, they just were in alignment with my core values, and that's okay. That's okay. Right? So that would be important for you to identify these things now, because that will help identify the core values of your business. Because again, our businesses are just an extension of us, right? As entrepreneurs. Does that make sense? Okay. So that's why you want to make sure that you've got these things well defined. Sam Barnes says for sure. Yeah. So very good. So stay plugged in. This is what's so important when you're thinking about your core values. Take the time to actually define them. So we talked about core purpose. We talked about core values. Now let's put this all together with our client avatar. Our client avatar is who specifically and ideally do you want to serve? Who's your ideal customer? What do they look like? And it's important that you identify them in any way possible. And then keep in mind, it might not be just one single person, but it might be a group of people. But you want to think about them in terms of their geographics, their demographics, and their psychographics. And this is going to be more meaningful here in just a second. You may be thinking, what does this have to do with lending? What does this have to do with borrowing in the name of a business? I'm going to make that connection here in just a second, because it may not be obvious right now, but it is absolutely obvious when you're trying to spend money on marketing and it's not landing. So you want to break these down in terms of their geographics, their demographics, and their psychographics. Their geographics is where they are. Their demographics is who they are. Are they married? Are they single? Do they have kids? Are they childless? Are they rich? Are they poor? Are they old? Are they young? Are they educated? Are they not educated? Whatever, right? But what are the demographics for that avatar? And what are their psychographics? Psychographics is how they think and how they buy. How they think and how they buy. So, psychographics, I want you to think of the phrase ALIA, ALIA, and that is their attitudes, their lifestyles, their interests, and their aspirations and goals. So you're thinking, okay. So I've got if I'm really understanding, what is their attitude on education? What's their attitude on social media? What's their attitude on politics? Right, that's kind of dangerous in the United States right now. What's their attitude on other things in life, right? Like, are they open-minded? Are they willing to learn? Are they willing to talk? Like, what are their attitudes in general? What are their lifestyles? Are they young and jet setting, or are they young and homebodies, right? Or maybe they're old and jet setting, right? Maybe all the kids are grown and they don't have grandkids. They don't have a relationship with their grandkids, or they don't have grandkids yet. So they're out running around the world, right? Whatever it is, what's their lifestyle like? Think about that. What are their interests? What things do they like to they engage in? Do they like reading? Do they like NASCAR? Do they like Formula One? Do they like American football, or do they like European football? Whatever. What are their interests? And then finally, what are their aspirations and goals? When you know someone's aspirations and goals, man, you have got them in your pocket. And that's really, really important, and the reason why all of this is important is because you're going to be tracking when you have metrics, and this is something I talk about in the Money and Finance course, but in the metrics, you want to know things like client acquisition cost. What does it cost for you to get a customer? If you sell a customer a $500 item, but it costs you $700 to get that customer, that's a problem. You're basically going broke. That's why CAC, client acquisition cost, is an important metric for you to track and for you to learn. But it's also important for you to know how well, if you're going to be borrowing money, that yes, I'm going to be sending out 10,000 of these little Marines, and each one of those Marines is going to be bringing back $2 under each arm. Okay, great. I can see sending out 10,000 of my little Marine dollars. Make sense? So this is how you start to be strategic, and this is why it makes sense for you to borrow strategically. But this is why I'm taking a top-down approach to borrowing money, because if I just said, well, this is how you borrow money, and I don't give you any context, you are no better off than watching anybody else in terms of borrowing money. Sorry. And guess what? I want to give those people who stuck around to get to this point to understand, like, oh, wait, there's more to this than just borrowing money. Yeah, a lot more to this. Because if you're just going to do it to borrow money and you don't understand the context, or you don't understand what it means to have good strategy, you're all you're going to be is a lot poorer, and you're sending money out to someone else. And now you're making someone else wealthy, and while you continue to struggle. So this is important for you to understand these 3 C's of business vision: core purpose, core values, and client avatar. So I'm just saying, I've got a couple of comments here that I'm going to get to, Brianna and Sam. But here's the interesting thing is you have to spend the time really dialing in. And if these things are not written down, I'm telling you, from a 1 out of 10, you're not going to be any greater than a 5. You're not greater than a 5. But if you really do spend the time dialing in and writing them down, where are you at? Go ahead and put in the chat, which one of these do you feel you have dialed in? Or which one of these you feel like you really have to do some work on, right? And no judgment, because I have to continue to do this stuff all the time. So Brianna is saying, I'm all over the place. I want my own beauty supply store. I'm also a licensed cosmetologist, but I get scared. Scared if it fails? What another business that can help besides retail and services? Well, here's the thing though, Brianna, is that I don't have a problem with you being in 2 different businesses. The problem is that what you'll do is you'll create 2 different jobs. And because you're serving too many masters, you end up really not being loyal to either one. And that's the problem. So is this a business, for example, like I'm a strategist, okay? I sell books, I sell courses, I sell one-to-one strategy work, right? I sell myself as basically as a coach, okay? But basically, all of those things are all in alignment. I'm not doing all of these things because they're all products around one core purpose, or it's a service around one core purpose. So what you're suggesting, Brianna, in this, having a beauty supply store, but also as a licensed cosmetologist, that could make sense. Okay, it could. But the thing is, it also sounds like if you're trying to do, cosmetics on others, while also trying to operate a retail establishment, those are 2 different businesses in my mind. Okay, so if you could get it up and running and you have your employees doing it and you have a manager that's basically able to manage it, and you are able to drive traffic because of your cosmetology licensure and you're able to drive traffic that way, then that makes sense. But my estimation, build one thing at a time. It sounds like you might have lower costs doing cosmetology work and also higher margins. Okay, so I'm just thinking at it from that perspective. I'm not trying to crap all over your dreams. I think you can do both. Just don't do both at the same time. Get one up and running. It's like building a bridge. Build that bridge, get to the other side of the river, and with that knowledge, walk back across that bridge, and with that knowledge, build another bridge. Make sense? Because what it sounds like is, I don't want you creating 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 different jobs for yourself, because when you're not working that job, that's when the bridge falls down. All right. Sam is asking a question. How can a new entrepreneur identify their ideal client if they don't have customers yet? Well, it's chicken or the egg, right? Like, the thing is, what are you trying to sell, Sam? Are you trying to sell, like, I didn't have customers, but I knew exactly the type of avatar that I wanted to work with. When I was transitioning away from Landlord Coach, so I own the brand Landlord Coach. And if you go to landlordcoach.com, you'll see the website. But if you go to landlordcoach.com, I was coaching individual mom and pop landlords and property managers in their organizations. And I really didn't like the direction I saw that industry going in, specifically the real estate coaching world. So I started to distance myself from that. So I really wanted to niche up. And because of that decision to niche up, I started working with small business owners. Now, granted, I get a lot of people still who come to me asking me for real estate stuff, because that's how I make most of my money. But what I'm saying is, from that perspective, I also knew who I wanted to work with. I really defined that based on my offering. I based that on what kind of, what my skill set was. So that's why you're going to have to start thinking about your core purpose and really what it is that you're trying to offer. Like, what is it you're trying to do here? So what are you trying to sell? What's the core purpose? And then you can help identify the client avatar. I would say it's really hard to identify a client avatar if you don't have a core purpose defined. So really good question, Sam. Thank you. Brianna is saying, finding the ideal client is something I want. Right. So define that person, define who that is. And keep in mind, it might be a couple. It might be a, I'm saying that for the basis of other people here, but it could be a couple, it could be a group, it could be a team, right? It could be a board of directors, but who is that avatar? But take that time to define who that is. Is it a 28-year-old who really likes to spend money on themselves, right? Where do they shop? Do they go tanning? Do they go to med spas and get Botox? And, are they older? Are they divorced? And they're trying to hey, I'm in a new phase of my life, new me. Okay. You might say, yes, all of those. Okay. And I know the enticement of trying to make that kind of decision, but I just want you to understand you have to get really dialed in terms of what that looks like. Okay. It doesn't mean that you're going to say no to them. It just means that what you're targeting is towards the avatar. Okay, let's see. So Idrisu from Ghana. Oh, very good. Very good. I'm glad you can join us. All right, so let's keep rolling on this, because if you don't have the time, if you have not spent the time dialing these in, the core purpose, core values, and client avatar, it's going to make a bigger difference when you're looking to borrow. So let's talk about infrastructure. We're not going to spend a ton of time on this. The infrastructure is just the bones of the business. It's the things like your desks and your chairs, your computers, your software, your websites. It's things like that, right? It's a very, very critical component of your business, because if you don't think of the infrastructure, if you don't have the POS systems, the point of sale systems, and all the inventory systems and everything else, it's going to be really difficult for you to operate efficiently and effectively. You might be thinking, well, if it's so important, why does vision come first? Because let's say, for argument's sake, that it's, let's say Kelly's idea of a personal vision is to lay on the beach for 2 months out of the year in Spain, rubbing cocoa butter on her belly. Okay? Fine vision. If she designs an infrastructure that requires her to return emails and phone calls in a timely manner, that's going to be a horrific experience when she's trying to lay on the beach for 2 months out of the year rubbing cocoa butter on her belly, right? So you're building that infrastructure that's in alignment with that vision for the future. That's why vision comes first. Otherwise, you're going to create a business, and then you're going to create a life that exists to serve the business. So that's what we're trying to avoid. So we talked about vision, we talked about infrastructure. Let's talk about process. Process is simply how you do stuff. And it's got two components, tactical and strategic. The tactical process is with the stuff you do day to day, right? Your standard operating procedures, your checklist items, your day-to-day activities, right? It's how you answer the phone, your opening procedures, closing procedures, and stuff like that. If I drew a box around infrastructure and process, that's the system component, okay? And generally, when lenders are looking to loan money, they want to know that you've got a dialed-in system. They want to know that your business is what's called a going concern. A going concern, meaning that it's ongoing, it's perpetual. That if you wake up tomorrow dead, okay, and you're not around anymore, that the business will still continue to operate. That's going to be important. So again, if you're looking to borrow in the name of a business, they want to know this structure, right? So if I draw a box around infrastructure and the tactical part of process, that's the ship, that's the battleship that you built, and now we want to take that ship out of the harbor. Okay, so if we just leave it there, I don't want it getting blown around by the economic winds or whatever happened to, blow across the harbor. So I want to take it out of the harbor. I want to go be strategic with it. And that's what strategic planning does. And when you're looking at strategic planning, that's when you involve people, purpose, and promotion. People, purpose, and promotion. And this is good stuff for you to start to think about when you are borrowing money in the name of a business. They're going to ask you what for. What are you using the money for? Well, if you're using it for expansion, that's fine. They're going to want to know why. You're going to need to know the people you're pursuing, which is probably new clients. Makes sense. And who are those new clients? Who should they be in alignment with? P.S. It's the 3 C's. Right. Exactly. Good answer. That client avatar that we defined back in Business Vision, right? So it should be in alignment with that. Maybe it's an expanded part. Maybe it's a narrow part of that client avatar. Who are the other people you're going to need? Probably loan officers, probably other people you're going to need to bring in into that strategic planning. What's the purpose? Are you looking to expand market share? Are you looking to grow your business? What are you looking to do? What's the point? What are you trying to do here with your strategic plan? Again, the strategic plan should be, the strategic purpose should be in alignment with what? Your core purpose. Make sense? Because if your strategic purpose is not in alignment with your core purpose, that would be as if like Starbucks tried to sell chainsaws. It doesn't make sense, right? So this is how you avoid that shiny object syndrome, where you're not just, getting wrapped up with your strategic purpose is not the same as your core purpose, because this is how people get very distracted. Okay. So it's, again, I'm not saying that you can't do other things or have different product or service offerings, but you have to make sure that it's not too distracting from your core purpose. And the last part is promotion. Promotion is just saying a lot of the things often. It's saying it outwardly with marketing and advertising, and also inwardly to your staff and your vendors, making sure you're saying that same thing, that same message over and over and over again in terms of promotion. So that is the tactical and strategic part of process. The other piece is execution. This is just making sure that you're executing well, okay? And because most plans fall apart in their execution, and it's because many people have way too many priorities, and having way too many priorities has the same impact as having none. This is why I like to come up with a daily 5. So when I borrowed, so I started this refinance that I had back in November, and it took me the better part of 3 months to get this thing moved in. And I always had one of my daily 5 things is working on this particular loan. And daily 5 is up to 5 highly specific actions that you can take that are going to move the needle towards your vision or your strategic plan, one or the other. Okay. So when you're borrowing money, okay, this is probably going to be one of your things, especially when you're going to have to get together a lot of loan docs and a lot of different types of things. We'll talk about that here in a second, but this is, again, up to 5 highly specific actions. What do I mean by this? Because most of you have a list of like 37 things that you're going to do today. Am I right? And again, if I had 3 hands, I'd put them all up, because I get it. I would do the same thing, but it wasn't until I started identifying the 5 things, the 5 critical needle moving activities that I had to do that day, that things really started to move for me. Okay. Most of you, especially if you're trying to grow a business, that's going to be directed towards your marketing activities. So the last piece here is reporting. Reporting is just simply tracking lead metrics and lag metrics. Lead metrics are just based on your actions and activities. They lead the results. The lag metrics are just simply the results. So if you don't like the results, what do you do? Change the results? No, you just change the activity. It's really not that complex. So just make sure that you're doing the actions and activities, the 5 most critical things, not like check email. That's not a daily 5 activity. Making 5 cold calls, I could say that is probably 1 of 5 activities. Okay. All right. So that's the Viper framework. Let's look about, we talked about business. We talked about the systems component. Let's talk really quickly about psychology, because systems are important, but systems are only going to get you so far. And when you're looking at psychology in relations to business, in regards to business, you've got personal and individual psychology, and you've got business and organizational psychology. Personal psychology deals with things like self-worth, self-management, limiting beliefs, emotional intelligence, things like that. Business, you've got both external and internal psychology. When you're looking at this from a just a holistic, again, this is from the business side of things. When you're looking at this, you're looking at both external and internal, and you're looking at things like buying psychology, vendor psychology, and negotiations, even things like politics. When you're looking at things like internal psychology, you're looking at things like management and leadership. And I'm telling you this, when they're looking at the leadership of the organization and the bankers, they are looking at you. They want to feel like you are a good risk. If they feel like you are showing and demonstrating bad character, if they are showing that you're demonstrating any sort of incompetence, if you are demonstrating that you just simply are just not a good risk, they're probably going to find a reason to say no. And I'm just telling you, that's the way it works. So, I have sat at banks where they would literally have conversations around finding ways to say no to someone because they heard through the grapevine that so-and-so was having an extramarital affair with such and such. And that's the way it was, because they felt like that was a bad moral character. They did not want to be wrapped up with that. And I'm telling you, that's just the way it works, especially with small banks. So you can hate the game, but I'm just saying, like, then just don't be sad when things like that show up. All right. Got some questions. Let's see. Let's see here. All right. So Kelly is saying case management is service-based business, and my ideal clients are women and children recovering from domestic violence, abuse, and/or neglect. Excellent. I love that kind of work, Kelly. I'm grateful that we have people out there like you that's doing it, and hopefully you're taking good self-care measures too, because that can have a deep effect on you. So thank you for doing that work. So let's talk about the other part. So this is going to go a little bit faster. So we talked about the systems in psychology. Let's talk about the 4 core functions of business. And the 4 core functions of business have to be true in every business, and they are lead generation, sales, operations, and accounting. And your customer's journey happens in that order. So you have to think about this, that when you're looking to borrow money, are you looking to borrow money so you can put it into research and development or lead generation or sales, something, building out more efficient operational functions or whatever it is. Okay. But you got to have a really dialed in accounting function if you're expecting the bankers to take a risk on you. So I'm going to take myself down so you can see this. This is actually excerpted from the Time Wealthy Advantage on page 265, but this is a very simple balance sheet example, and just going to go ahead and show you what this looks like. So again, for those of you who don't know what a balance sheet is, it's just a simple balance of all the accounts in your organization. So if you're looking at this, you're looking at the assets at the top, the liabilities kind of in there in the middle, and at the bottom, you've got the equity. So generally what you would do conceptually is if you took all the assets and sold them and you paid off all the liabilities, what would be left over would be the equity. That's conceptually what that is. So what you're going to see, I'm just going to show you a couple of, just dial into this a little bit. But when you look at the assets are what you own. That's what the business owns. And this balance sheet is a snapshot in time. That means at one point in time, at some point in the day or the month or the year or whatever, whenever this was done, they everything got frozen for one moment in time, and this is the balances that were in these accounts at that moment in time. Generally, you're going to see this at the end of a month, at the end of a quarter, at the end of a year. So the cash balances, and again, these are listed from most liquid, meaning most convertible to cash, to least liquid, meaning the least convertible. I mean, it still can be convertible to cash, but more difficult. Like, for example, they'd have to find a buyer for the warehouse versus going to a bank and just saying, hey, I want $10,350, please. And that gets them their cash pretty quick. So again, you've got the cash balance in the checking account of $10,000. You've got accounts receivable, which is money that is owed to you, to your business, in the amount of $101,000. You got vehicles of $29,970. And real estate warehouse, which is $275,500. Now, keep in mind, even if you live outside the U.S., this follows what's called GAAP, GAAP, which is generally accepted accounting principles. Now, why am I showing you this? Because this component on your balance sheet, some of these things can be used as collateral. Well, collateral for a loan is what you pledge to say, well, if I don't pay it back, you can take my collateral and sell it or do whatever with it and get the money out of that collateral, right? So there's inherent value in things like accounts receivable. There's inherent value in a vehicle that's, a 2019 Ford van. There's inherent value in a real estate, in a warehouse. Okay. So that's what bankers will do, is they will attach to the collateral in your on your balance sheet, but it's got to be a clean balance sheet. You can't have all these weird numbers on there. Okay. When I mean clean balance sheet, I mean one that's been reconciled, that the accounts that the numbers are good. They want to feel like the numbers are ones that they can hang their hat on. So that is the assets portion of a balance sheet. The bottom part is the liabilities. Now, this is what's owed to others. So the liabilities might be a credit card balance. Okay. And again, this goes from shortest term debt to longest term debt. Shortest term to longest term. So when you're looking at a credit card balance, that's a Chase. Let's say they owe $34,000 on a Chase card. Accounts payable to a vendor. Maybe you're a cosmetologist, right? And you buy on an account from Elf Products, right? And Elf sells you $37,500 worth of makeup, and you owe them in 30 days or 45 days, right? That would be an accounts payable to a vendor. Wells Fargo has your van loan, and you only owe $11,570 on it. And then you have a mortgage through Citibank for the real estate mortgage for the warehouse for $105,000. Okay, so the total liabilities added up are $189,000. Total equity, again, is the assets minus the liabilities, which is equals the equity of $228,000. Okay, so that is the balance sheet in a nutshell. This is going to be really, really important because when you're looking at getting a loan, you have to know this stuff in advance. Because if you don't know that your balance sheet is, or even what's on the balance sheet, and they start asking you questions, and you're like, I don't know, right? You got to know, you got to have a basic understanding of what this is. And this is, again, not trying to push the course. I'm just saying this is all the stuff that I walk through in the money and finance course, because a lot of the stuff around balance sheets and income statements is not, it's not hard to know, but you do need to take the time to do it. And I'm not trying to make you into a bookkeeper or an accountant. I'm just saying, like, this is all the stuff that you need to know. So from an income statement perspective, by the way, has anybody ever heard an income statement or a P&L or profit and loss? By the way, they're all the same thing. Income statement, profit and loss, P&L, they're all the same thing. It's just a difference in vernacular. So finding, let's see. So when you're looking at the income statement, understand that is over a period of time. That is over a period of time. So you've got revenues, which is the total sales over that period of time. You've got expenses, which is the total what is due over that period of time. And then you'll also have the net income, which is the revenues minus the expenses, which is equals the net income or profit. Okay. So that is what you get to keep. So let's look at the income statement. The revenues are, so you've got the revenues here at the very top, the expenses in the middle section, and then you got the net income down at the bottom. So the revenues, again, these are the total sales. I'm not going to get into the if you're looking at the right hand side and you see the percentages on the right hand side, that's percentage of sales. I'm not going to get into that. That's actually something I do in the financial literacy course or the financial literacy for business owners webinar. So if you want to sign up for either one of those, I'm just letting you know that that's where you can get into that. But basically what you're doing is you're dividing the number by the total amount of sales. Okay. So again, you're seeing the expenses there at the top, so the revenues at the top, the expenses there in the middle section, and the expenses are just basically what's paid out over that period of time. So let's say if it's a period of a month, you got raw materials, insurance, interest, commissions, etc. Right? And then your net income is $17,000. So your total expenses, again, your total revenues are 114 minus your total expenses of 96 equals the net income of 17,000. Okay. So that's your income statement. All right. Now, again, is there more to unpack there? Absolutely. But I'm just going through the basics right now because I'm going to show you and demonstrate really quickly on how to calculate what's called EBITDA. And I'm also going to show you how to calculate debt service coverage ratio. And then we're going to put the fries in the bag. All right. So that's the financial statements. Those are the basics of financials. So underwriting and lending, you might be thinking, okay, well, what are the bankers going to ask for? Right out of the top, I'm telling you, now this is based out of the US. If you are watching this from outside the US, I'm telling you, every bank is a little bit different, but generally what you can expect, they want to see 3 years of tax returns. That's right out of the gate. They're going to want to see that. They're also going to want you to fill out a personal financial statement. What a personal financial statement is, it's kind of like a balance sheet, but for you personally. It's just you personally. What do you own, and what's the money in your bank account? What stocks do you own personally? What's your car worth? That sort of stuff, right? So that's personal financial statement, and then company financial statements, your balance sheet and your income statement for your company, right? So those are the sorts of things that bankers are going to ask for. They're also going to ask for a Schedule E. What's a Schedule E? Well, if you own rental properties, right? That's generally on a Schedule E. A Schedule C is going to be if you are a sole proprietor or if you're a single member LLC, they're going to look for a Schedule C. If you have a K1 or a corporate return, that's like if you have a pass-through entity like a partnership or an S corp or the beneficiary of an estate or a trust or anything like that, right? So I'm just letting you know, like if you have a C corp, you'll have what's called an 1120. I'm not going to get into the weeds on that, but if you have an S corp, it'll be an 1120S. But anyway, all of these things are things that you need to be prepared to bring to the table. So depending on the type of business, they're either going to calculate EBITDA or NOI. EBITDA is earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. I'm going to show you how to calculate EBITDA. NOI is just basically net operating income. And I don't have the time to get into that right now, but most people, if you're trying to borrow in the name of a business, most of you are probably going to have to calculate EBITDA. That's just the way it is, right? If you're looking at borrowing in the name for real estate, then generally they're going to use NOI. But it's all very different. It just depends. So and I'm going to show you how to calculate that service coverage ratio. So when you're looking at EBITDA, what you're going to do is you're going to take net income and you're going to add interest and income taxes, not property taxes. If you have property taxes, those don't get added in. Those are, you have to pay regardless. But you're going to add back what's called a non-cash expense, right? Why is it called non-cash? Don't ask me why, because it's very conceptual. It doesn't matter. Just know for right now, you have to add back interest and income taxes because that is what you're calculating, part of the calculation for EBITDA. And this is the number that they're going to use in terms of deciding how much they're going to loan you. Okay, so this is an important number for you to know. So when you take you got your net income, you're going to add back interest and income taxes, or basically taxes that are off of your income statement. Okay, we learned about the income statement a little bit ago. Then they're going to add back depreciation and amortization. Depreciation is let's say that I've got this thing here, this little piece of this lip balm, and it's worth $1,000, and I know it's got a 10-year useful life. Well, I know I'm going to write down $100 each year for 10 years. That's depreciating the asset, and you're going to add that number back to any of the depreciation that was taken during that period of time. Okay, because it's a non-cash expense. Amortization is actually something similar, but it's more for like non-physical assets, like loans, patents, things like that. Okay, so that is what calculates EBITDA. Net income, so it's earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization, right? So you're adding it all back. Okay, so if we're going to calculate debt service coverage, and I know this is a very simple example. So for those of you who have got more advanced knowledge in this, I know there's more to it than this, but I'm just letting you know this is very much the basics. Basically, what you're doing is you're taking EBITDA divided by debt service. So in other words, if that equals debt service coverage ratio. So if you have $3,000 in earnings, right, basically in EBITDA, divided by $2,000 in payments that you would be making on this proposed new loan, that would give you a debt service coverage of 1.5. Generally, that's pretty good. Most banks want to see at least 1.25 or higher to say yes. Personally, I'm not going to say, I don't even want to get into a debt service unless it's at least 1.5, probably more like 2 or 3, right? Because then it makes the loan such a no-brainer to ask when I'm bringing that in front of the loan officer, okay? So that is something that is really important to understand. So some of the success strategies, again, there's different things that I just want you to understand. Right now, I'm going to get into the Advanced Money and Finance course. So for those of you who've got any questions, you're more than welcome to plug them in. Right now, if you're not interested in the Advanced Money and Finance course, you can hop off now because I'm just going to take a few minutes to talk about what this looks like. So if you are interested, just stick around. If you're not going to hurt my feelings, I promise. But I just want to make sure that you guys know how to get this. So for those of you who are interested in any of this and you're trying to get, give me one hot second here. I got to move something real fast. There we go. All right. So the Advanced Money and Finance course, what this does, I start this out. There's money templates it's a main bonus of everything that I talked about. All of these are examples. Every video that I have in here is backed up by a money template. So there's chart of accounts examples and basic balance sheet examples that you can go in and play with it, right? And save it as a new file, and if you mess it up, go back in and just bring a new example in, okay? You got basic balance sheet examples, income statement examples, so all these things are just very basic so you can understand them. It's also about tracking, balance tracking, which is something that's a very different standard that I see among people who are business owners, is that they check, but they don't track. So what do I mean? Checking and tracking are two different things. Tracking is where you're actually seeing the trend. Checking is when you just log in and go, oh yeah, that's the number. Okay, what was the number last Tuesday? I have no idea. Okay, so and I do that too. I go in and I check, make sure my bank accounts are good. But I also track every month to see that those balances are increasing, or if they're loans, that those balances are decreasing. So these are the sorts of things that I want to track, and this is a balance tracking example just to show you how to do it. I also have in here an underwriting example of how to underwrite loans. And there's all sorts of different loans from business underwriting, real estate underwriting, and lines of credit, and so forth and so on, right? There's also a personal finance sheet example that you can actually plug in, fill it all out, print it, and then sign it. And generally, most banks and most bankers are going to want a printed and signed personal financial statement. So this is an example that you can fill out on your own when you're ready to borrow. Understanding and how to calculate real estate and debt service coverage underwriting. So actually, this is the example of borrowing for the purchase of real estate. And I know there's a lot of people who follow me who want those examples, but there's more examples of the money templates. But I want to get into some of the lessons that you're going to learn. This is some of the basic stuff around balance sheets, tracking examples, the chart of accounts, general ledger, and other scary things. Look, I just want to tell you this. For those of you who are like, oh, I'm not a numbers person, not an accounting person. Listen, I want to save you some grief. Accounting and bookkeeping isn't about numbers. It's about rules. And all of this, what everything does in here is it doesn't teach you to become a bookkeeper. That's not what I want. I don't want you to become a bookkeeper. I want you to become well-versed in all of these different things. So when your bookkeeper says, oh, yeah, I looked on your general ledger, you know what that is. When they say, oh, yeah, I checked your chart of accounts, you know what that means. Right? You're not like, oh, yeah, okay, yeah, like you're pretending to know. Look, I want you to be a business owner. I just want you to be an informed business owner. Okay, so that's all this is. So lesson one brings you through all those basics. Lesson two, it talks about the basics of balance sheet, and it's like a 10-minute video. Most of these videos, by the way, are under 20 minutes. So you can generally hit them like one at a time and make pretty decent progress. There's one, I think, that's 34 minutes, and that's the longest one. It's just the nature of the topic was just too vast. I wasn't able to break that up. So you got balance sheet basics, income statement basics, and understanding the interrelationship between an income statement and a balance sheet. There is a relationship between the two. Then we get into lending basics and borrowing as a business, starting with revolving lines of credit, term loans, all sorts of different stuff like that, which is really important, and also about collateral valuations. So remember earlier on when I talked about borrowing or offering up your accounts receivable as collateral? Well, they discount that. It's called an advance rate or a discount rate. So an advance rate is what they advance you. So if they say, hey, I'll give you 70% of the value of your real estate, they advance 70%. That's what that means, right? Versus a discount rate, which means they carve off 30%. So one is the opposite of the other. So these are the things you're going to learn. I'm going to show you how to get into the weeds on calculating EBITDA, which is earnings before earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization, calculating debt service coverage ratio, and also getting into the weeds on FICO scores. Most of you, and I understand why, think that there are 3 FICO scores. There's actually not. There are 3 bureaus, but there's like 8 different scores. There's bank card scores, there's an unweighted score, there's mortgage scores, there's auto scores, and there's other scores that are used for other things. So I just want you to understand this is all stuff that you can learn in this course. So the money templates, again, this is all stuff that is given the examples on how to work with all this stuff. There's chart of accounts, balance sheet, income statement, balance tracking, underwriting, personal finance, like I already told you about, borrowing as a business. There's something I didn't talk about here. It is advanced. There's advanced income statement and balance sheet examples. So there's more sophisticated examples of balance sheet and income statement. And there's also what's called a CapEx calculator. That's capital expenditure. So generally you're going to see that on how to calculate that in real estate examples, but capital expenditure is also important for like when let's say you're a seamstress and you got to buy a new sewing machine, right? Well, that'd be a capital expenditure item, right? So those are the sorts of things that you would look at. We're looking at accounts receivable aging, accounts payable aging. These are all things that are very, very important, especially if you're running and operating this business. When you're looking at, again, the video training, this brings you through all the different lessons that I talked about. Also, lesson 9, we talked about the FICO scores. There's metrics that you have to know. I mentioned them a little bit earlier on. There's one that's called RMI, the return on marketing investment. That's going to be a really critical metric for you to know, as well as what's called CAC, their client acquisition cost. And there are multiple other metrics that you need to know so you can look at it and go, oh, okay, I'm actually in good shape. Or, oh, okay, no, I'm not in good shape. Think of your metrics like your vital signs for you as your human body, right? So what is that? What are the metrics there? Pulse, heart rate, or I'm sorry, pulse, your blood pressure, your temperature. Let's look at those three. Those three things kind of tell most people, like, okay, what's going on, right? Like, okay, there's, what are the vital signs, right? That's important for people to know. Breathing rate, respirations, weight, those are kind of vital signs. That's important. Think of those things, think of the metrics as the vital signs for your business. So if you see something's off, like, oh, it's got a temperature, it's got a fever, oh, something's off. What's going on? That's kind of the way I want you to think about your metrics. That way you don't have to look at every single thing. You only have to look at a couple things for you to really understand what's going on in your business. So that's part of the metrics part of it. There's advanced metrics, which again, we just kind of keep expanding on that. There's also different things around the loan constant and other debt tools. Now, I want to say this, and I'm not saying this to be mean. I'm just saying this for information. Like Dave Ramsey and Susie Orman, I think they are very smart people. But there's certain things that they're not exactly right about. And I'm not trying to be polarizing here. I do like them. But what they tell you to do when you're trying to pay off debt is to pay off the highest interest rate first. And I think that's bad advice. In fact, I know it's bad advice because you're not managing your risk if you're not managing what's called a loan constant. And if you get nothing else out of this, that loan constant is absolutely a game changer. So once you understand that, that is a big deal. And then I finish this up with 2 other videos. One is about growing broke. And this is really important for you as a business owner to know, like, you're not going to be growing faster than your ability to generate cash. So growing broke is a really big problem, and most people don't understand it. And also around infinite banking, about where you can store your cash in ways that are tax advantaged. All of this is $37. So I'm going to go ahead and put the link in the comments section. And here's what I just want to make sure that you understand. You get all of those the money templates like I had mentioned, but you also get all of those videos, and like I had mentioned in the beginning, you get a full 395-day satisfaction guarantee. If you get in it and you have 30 days, you can take as long as you want to really go through it, but I'm saying, like, reasonably anybody can get through the course in 30 days. Go through the course in 30 days. Take a full year on the other side of that 30 days to decide if I'm full of crap. And if you hear a concept and you're like, nope, he's wrong, he's a liar, I hate his face, and you want your money back, no questions asked. I will give you your $37 back. But it is such a no-brainer. I had my inner circle members go through this, number one, because it was part of their membership. But number two, and these are people that pay me quite a bit of money to work with them one-to-one. And I work with them one-to-one, and they were like, how much you plan on charging for this? And I told them, and they're like, why 37? You could charge a lot more for this. I said, look, I don't want someone who's already struggling financially to not be able to afford this thing, because this could be such a game changer in their life. Okay. So, I went ahead and put the link up on in the chat. That is pretty much everything that I have. So thanks so much for sticking around. If you guys have any questions, I will hang around for just a hot second, but you guys seem to be a quiet bunch right now. It looks like everybody stuck around. Thanks so much for at least hearing me out on the course. And if I don't have any other questions, go ahead and click on the link right now. This will be up on YouTube. If it's right now I'm broadcasting on YouTube, it'll be up there. But yeah, go ahead and get in there, get started. And I look forward to seeing you guys inside in the training. All right. Have a great rest of your day. See you guys in the boardroom.